Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I'm an Arlington resident, and my mother lives in Culpeper Garden Assisted Living, and we found out, which is, if you're not familiar, Culpeper Garden is a independent and assisted living facility here in Arlington for low-income seniors. And about 2 weeks ago, we received notice from the management that the board of directors decided to close the low-income portion of Culpeper Garden. So that has been very distressing for the residents. There are no other low-income assisted livings for seniors in Arlington, and I don't think there's a facility like this in Northern Virginia. So what I'd like to ask the Housing Commission to do is to help us form a working group. Right now, the board for Culpeper Garden is saying they don't want to move off their position. We've been in touch with our congressional delegation, county board members, delegates, all that sort of thing, and the faith-based community. So there's a desire amongst the community to set up a working group to see whether or not we can come up with the funds. The deficit is $500,000, which is not a lot for 1 year. It's the ongoing years I think they're afraid of. But once this goes away, there won't be another place for low-income seniors to go in Arlington. So there's 73 seniors that are served there, or 73 apartments, and they're more than that are served because people either move out or they pass on, that sort of thing. So it's the independent living side has about 275 apartments, and it's kind of a funnel down for the low income assisted living. So we'd just like to make sure the commission is aware of this, the Housing Commission is aware of this, and that you guys start a discussion to see whether or not there's anything you can do to help the situation. There's one other odd thing about it. It's a HUD building, and when it was announced, there was a family meeting last week with the residents, and the management was very aggressive about telling people they had to move out, which talking to HUD seems to be incorrect, that HUD actually contracts with the folks in those apartments are theirs to stay in for as long as they have a lease. So if the Housing Commission could help us fix that problem and get the right information to the residents, that would be greatly appreciated. And I think that's about all I have to say. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Thanks, Maura, for sharing. And that's just really upsetting. I want to pass it over to Kellen, who's our chair of the Housing Commission.
Thanks, Katie. And Maura, so with the property owners saying that folks have to leave before their leases are actually up, is that what you're saying?
That's what they're encouraging them to do. So they said, so the county board actually it's a nonprofit. So it was started by the Unitarian Universalists. Oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago, or longer. So it's been around for a long time, and it's been assisted living for about 25 years. The county board, to shore up their funds, gave a grant of $350,000 this year to the nonprofit. It's ARHC, Arlington Retirement Housing Committee, maybe. When they made these announcements, the county board members are blindsided. Our congressional delegation was blindsided. The Unitarian Universalists who started it were blindsided. So they said the management for Culpeper Garden said that there was at least a year, maybe up to 18 months that people could stay. But once we had this meeting, they encouraged people to leave and find some place immediately. And they said things like, well, there may not be somebody here, so if you fall, no one will find you. You may miss out on opportunities, so you need to leave as quickly as possible. When they were asked if people could stay and live independently and bring folks in, they said, no, you can't, or no, that's not a very good strategy, or maybe we'll have to check into the legal matters. But when we checked with HUD, HUD said those apartments not really belong, but they're contracted with the individual and they can bring in help. So it is very confusing for the residents and the families. Culpeper Garden has not made it easy for the families to communicate with each other. So it's been a challenge to get correct information out, to get people together and let them figure out what to do with their loved ones. So there's a lot of panic. Some of the elderly people, I know them because I live a mile away and I go and visit my mother frequently. And for my mother, she's in hospice. This issue for us is probably not huge, but it's huge for the community. Once this is gone, there's nothing else for low-income seniors. It's not going to come back. So the president of the board is Charlie Meng, who is also the CEO of AFAC. And I think in their defense, it's hard to run assisted living and it's expensive, but they really haven't reached out to the community. They may have been doing private fundraising, I don't know. But they definitely did not reach out to the community and give any indication at all that they were in financial distress. They just said, we're closing, no discussion, and you have a year, but get out sooner. That's basically the message.
No, it's definitely a terrible situation. And I can follow up with county staff. I know the county is engaged on this and I know they're, very concerned about, what's happening. I don't know what the solution is, because the only other proposed development that we had for low-income seniors, the plug got pulled on that because of neighborhood opposition and financial, challenges. So it's a frustrating and very bad situation. The only other thing I would say is, in addition to, I'll follow up with the county, is Amazon through the Housing Equity Fund, maybe a potential source of funding for this, and I'm sure the county is probably looking into that as well. But that's a potential option because they still are making grants and investing in affordable housing in the DC metro area. So
that's wonderful, Kellum. I think really what our ask is to see whether or not we can get a pause put on moving people out and establish a working group with people, experts, folks like you, who could help us figure out who we would go for money, write grants. I mean, I have lots of friends who have said they're willing to help. I think the faith-based community is willing to help. But if we put together a working group and said, okay, how can we fix this from a long-term perspective? I think together we may be able to do that. And I guess that's our ask, is whether or not the Housing Commission could help us and the county could help us do that.
Like I said, I can certainly talk to county staff as far as like participating in a working group. I don't want to speak for the Housing Commission, which we already have 3 subcommittees going right now, and we have limited bandwidth given all the other things that are on our plate. But this is certainly an incredibly important issue. And our community will be so much worse off if we lose this affordable housing. So I'll talk to staff and see if there's a role that we can play to assist in the county's efforts, because I know this is important to them and they don't want to lose this either. But yeah, I'll certainly see if we can do anything to help, and I appreciate you coming today.
All right. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, everybody.
Oh, yes,
just get
Michael?
clarification. Just on the, when you talk about the affordable units, does that include independent or assisted living, or just assisted living, or what?
It's the assisted living. So there's 3 portions of Culpeper Garden. There's 1, 2, and 3. 3 is the assisted living, and they want to transition that to independent living and get out of the assisted living business, which leaves obviously no assisted living in Arlington for low-income seniors.
Okay, so the units you're talking about are in the assisted living portion.
Yes, there's 73 units.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'm not familiar enough with.
Sure.
Are there people still going to be? Sorry. Are there units? Yeah.
I'm gonna finish one little piece and then I'll let you go, Katie. Just that I'm with AHC and we have a property, Hunter Park, which is independent living. It's low income housing, independent living, and we have people who have assistants in those units with them. So I'm not sure what that claim is from the Culpeper Garden folks, that they can't do that, but.
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
interesting thing, Michael, because in the independent living at Culpeper, there are also people who bring in assistance. So there's 3 levels of care into the assisted living, 1, 2, and 3, 1 being the lowest, which means you might need someone to help you put on your stockings or medication management, something like that. Those people could easily stay, but they're being pressured to leave, and 60 to 65% of the residents are level 1. And then it becomes more complicated with people who are level 2 and 3 because they need more significant care.
I was just going to ask if they're proposing to change the assisted affordable units to independent affordable units or to independent market rate units?
Affordable.
Okay, thanks. And then also I was wondering if, Maura, you could provide your email address in case we need to follow up with you.
Sure. You want me to just type it in here?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Alex, do we have another public comment? I see Karen's here. Did Karen sign up?
No one else signed up in advance.
Yeah, I apologize. I think what it was is I was listening to Mara's. I'm part of the whole Culpeper Garden, but I just wanted to bring the issue of the auxiliary grants. I don't know if the Department of Housing could tell me anything more on that, but a lot of these residents got auxiliary grants, and it seems that we families are trying to find out, do these grants transfer to other housing options within Arlington? At Culpeper, we were told to call the county, and I've been calling 3 different people now and have not gotten any word on information on these auxiliary grants.
Are you guys familiar with auxiliary grants? They're given by the state, and they're for low income folks, and you can qualify for them if you have an income level below a certain amount. And the state will then give the assisted living place the difference between your income and what the grant is. So it's not a whole lot of money, I think, and because I've looked it up. My mother's not on one, but the income level is about $2,400. So if you say we were make $1,000, the grant could be $1,400, and that money would go help pay for your care.
I think
Good to know.
it's, yeah, I'm not sure if it's the care portion. I thought it was the housing, but maybe that's the HUD portion, Mara. Maybe that's the HUD portion.
You know, I'm not an expert on it, so you could be right, Karen.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure either. But there's the HUD piece, and then there's the auxiliary piece.
Well, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And it sounds like you're having trouble reaching county staff. I was wondering if Alex, who's our staff liaison, could you connect with Karen and help her, follow up with those appropriate county staff?
Yep. Would you mind putting your email in the chat as well?
Yes, that would be great. I will do that right now. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both, Maura and Karen.
And thank you for your time. We really appreciate your time and attention to this.
Of course, yeah. Okay, why don't we move on to our next agenda item? I think just in the interest of time, I think we can skip introductions today. And the next item I wanted to talk about before we get into sort of updates on our work is the site plan process, the SPRC process. And, I was asking county staff if they could provide a presentation about it, but they, said they didn't have that capacity right now, but they did provide some resources for us to look at. Did anyone read those yet? The one pager? Okay, yeah, that's fine. So if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen and I would like to look at the current engagement they do and then start brainstorming with you all, like what are the gaps we're seeing? Where do we think they should be engaging more? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Oops, sorry. Trying to hide my bookmarks. Okay, so this is just a general about the process, but okay, so the site plan, the SPRC committee creation, you know, a member of the planning commission chairs the SPRC. He or she identifies stakeholder groups that will need representation. Civic associations in the project area are always invited. The SPRC may also include, you know, representatives of other advisory groups and commissions and other neighborhood or community groups. So it sounds like, you know, in terms of who's actually on the SPRC, it's definitely civic association members and potentially other neighborhood or community group members, but that one's not like required. And then in terms of community engagement, they do online engagement, you know, trying to get people to fill out a survey. And then, you know, for some projects, the, you know, a site walking tour may be held. So, you know, and also just talking to Anthony Fusarelli, who is the staff member who sent me this, you know, he was saying that, yeah, they always reach out to the civic association. And, you know, he says, yes, they also, you know, reach out to other local organizations, but it wasn't very specific about, do they definitely reach out to, you know, people in the neighboring apartment complexes, if there are any, just like renters who may be positively impacted by this project, maybe renters who would want to move into this project, or they only reaching out to civic association members who, I don't have the data and I'd love to learn the data, but from my understanding, that's majority homeowners who, you know, probably won't benefit from a new rental property and may have more, you know, negative perceptions of it. Yeah, Karen.
So I actually remember this issue back when I started on the Housing Commission. We were trying to get renters, I can't remember what project it was. Eric Berkey was very involved trying to get renters involved in one of those SPRCs, and I can't remember which one it was. And it just never happened. I mean, even though they were trying to get them to come. I don't know. It seems like there was like a disconnect between, and I think the county's aware of this, of the renters being aware that the information is out there, that it's reaching them, that there is this opportunity to comment. And actually, I had 3 surveys that I filled out, that I had people fill out, and that's one of the things they said, is that there's lack of information about specific projects when they come, or they don't get that information, the people that are affected. So I don't know what the answer is, but those are my comments.
Yeah, thanks for that. Kellen?
And to answer Michael's question, so site plan projects are those that they want to do something beyond what's allowed zoning wise for that property. So it means that the county board needs to approve the project because they either want like additional density or height or something. So it goes through the site plan process. So I thought it was interesting too that Anthony had said that the developers are not required to actually do the community engagement outside of the site plan review committee. So like they're not required to reach out to civic associations or have those conversations. It's just they're encouraged to, but it's not a requirement. And on the renter side, Karen, like this is something that I've expressed frustration with to the planning staff, that there was a SPRC that I was on where it was the parking lot of a existing market rate affordable apartment building, and they were going to get rid of most of the parking that existing residents had, which would likely require some of them to move because they have a car and they would have nowhere to park it anymore. And during the SBRC, they had the Civic Association and they had like the condo development across the street represented, but no tenants who actually lived in the property that was going to have the new development on it represented. And the reason why they said was there's no tenant association, so we don't know who to go to represent them. and we don't feel comfortable randomly selecting tenants to represent them. So they just don't have tenants represented. And which I think is a very bad way to do business. And it's essentially of kind of the mindset of it's hard to get renters involved, so we don't. And it would be much harder for them to figure out how to get representation or figure out who's going to represent the tenants, and that's more effort than they had the resources to expend, so they just didn't. And I think that's typically how it works. If it's as easy to get tenants to be involved as it is to get homeowners, then they're all for tenants being involved. But if it requires, additional work and resources that they haven't planned to expend that time and effort and those resources, then it's probably not going to happen. Which I think is a failure of our community engagement process in the county.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kellen. I think that really is a big example where they didn't even talk to the renters in that same property.
Well, I will say they talked, so they went around and informed the tenants that this was happening, but they didn't have a voice in the SBRC committee. So they were trying to do other engagement, but it was I kind of felt like I was having to speak for the renters in the SBRC because they weren't there to speak for themselves, which was a frustrating, experience.
Right. Yeah, Karen?
So I know they have public comment at the SPRC meetings, but do people even know that that is a avenue that's available? I'm just asking that question because a couple of the people that I surveyed said they felt like their voice did not matter when it came to participating in the planning process. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I guess we should try to maybe brainstorm. What is the answer to get more people involved so that they feel like that when they go to these meetings, that people are actually listening to them, even if they can't sometimes act on what they would like to happen. I don't know. It seems like that's a frustration of people, and that's why they don't get up getting involved, because they feel like, well, what's the purpose of me getting involved if no one's going to listen to me anyways? I have to go out of my way to go to one of these meetings.
Well, I think that's an issue that a number of stakeholders feel. I mean, have expressed that in the Housing Commission that, by the time site plans come to us, it's too late for anything that we say to make a difference. So it's kind of pointless. And we don't feel heard because we say things and nothing happens because it's too late. So I think one of my issues with the site plan process is you have performative outreach and engagement in it that doesn't actually result in any meaningful change or ability for people to shape or influence things. But it's yeah, but we still talk to you. Even though there was no opportunity for you to change anything, we still had the conversation. And it's what's the point of that? That's not real engagement, that's performative. And I think to some degree, the process is built on, let's check the box. We sent flyers out or we did this, and that checks the box for that community engagement, even though it didn't actually lead to a real opportunity to make any change or meaningfully, discuss whatever issues people may be having. And not to say that it's easy to do that. I think it is much more challenging to have meaningful engagement, but I think that's part of the challenge that we see. And I think when you have people in Arlington complain about, my voice isn't heard and there's no opportunity for me to say things, there's lots of opportunities for people to say things. But what they're saying is, but no one cares what I have to say when I, do that. And it doesn't change anything. So what's the point?
Yeah, I think that's a great question about, if people actually do take the time to go and give their feedback, how is that listened to? And, that's a hard one because I don't know if that's even within our purview. But I think with the SPRC process, what we did hear from staff was that if there's any changes made to the site plan, it's usually in the earlier SPRC meetings, in those actual meetings, rather than, way later the commission giving a letter or way later public comment or whatever. So I know on our part, separate conversation we were having was, can we move our part, our letter in that, or a presentation in that earlier in the process? And also try to get commissioners at the SBRC meetings. But I know that's side note, but yeah, I don't know about that aspect necessarily. I guess what I was gonna try to talk about was how do we get people to actually get that information in the first place and learn how they can participate and be able to participate. Which I think county staff generally know that, like the community engagement people were saying, they have all these strategies where, language interpretation, and they provide childcare, and they, have food at their meetings, and they, et cetera. But I think they might not be doing that for site plans. Probably not. But I think if they really are serious about getting more diverse community engagement in site plans, they need to do that targeted outreach and go have an event, at the nearby apartment building and try to meet people there and be like, hey, did you know that you can be part of this SPRC? How can we make that happen for some of you to join that, or gather feedback from them right there.
Yes, you said, Katie, and at the same time, going back to what Kellen was saying, like if it's performative engagement, I may show up one time, I'm not coming back. And that's where I think I'm like, what can we do from both fronts? One, your place is very much like, how do we improve the level of engagement and the way we're engaging people? And then also, how can we improve the fact that engagement is actually meaningful? So this is where, this part I'm very comfortable with. Improve that sort of engagement, getting people involved. I'm less comfortable and familiar with how to change the process to make it legitimate, real engagement.
That's a great question, and I don't know all the intricacies of like how much does the community input matter in the county's decision on a certain project, or the developers, negotiations with the county. How much is that actually influenced by input? And I don't know if it's possible that for us to give a recommendation to be like, oh, you should be more influenced by input, because then also there can be concerns that there's people who don't want this project, who are neighbors, who have really no stake in it, but they are going to slow down a project. So that's a tricky one.
But yeah, and I think it's still, the balance is you still have parameters around the engagement, and you still, like, you can't indefinitely keep a development open until everyone who, feels like they want to say something has said something, because that delay, it drives up the cost. It blows up, it can blow up the entire thing, and then it just doesn't happen. And I think, to your point about folks who are just, you have people who live in a community who say, my goal for my community is to never have anything change, because I liked it when I bought into this and I never want it to change. I don't want new neighbors. I don't want, more development. Like, I just want it to stay exactly how it is. That voice is important to hear. But we have competing priorities across the county, which is we need more housing. We need more, especially affordable housing. And so you need to make sure that you're also getting those voices, and you're not elevating the people who are just, I don't want anything to change ever because I'm happy with what I have. I don't need something different. And I don't really care what anyone else needs in the community because, I want what I want. To, look at the people who wish they could live in that neighborhood, but can't because of the barriers that have been put up in the past. And, they could potentially shape things to help allow them to also enjoy the benefits of the neighborhood. But yeah, I think this is probably an area where the best practice research from other localities across the country is probably most important, to figure out who's actually doing this well and who's doing it really well from an equity perspective. So they're balancing the loudest voices in the room with the people who you typically never hear from, and are maybe afraid to speak up, or who've never been invited to be a part of that room and that discussion. And someone had volunteered to do best practice research.
I believe
Who-
that was John and Nikki. I should
Okay.
probably follow up with them to ask them to specifically research that. And yeah, great point. And another thought I had was that I have noticed that sometimes staff will do surveys and then they'll disaggregate the data where they'll be like, are you a renter or homeowner? What's your race? What's your income? You know, and then they'll show the percentage of people that supported or opposed something based on those characteristics. And I think that could be a really valuable tool to, you know, maybe the county needs to try to weight it somehow so that they're like trying to consider perspectives from different groups of people.
Can we ask the county to, if we can get sort of a readout of that data, like for the last however many site plan projects, what percentage of respondents were actually low income, and what percentage were renters versus homeowners, to just get a sense of who's actually responding to these surveys. I would imagine the surveys probably aren't getting a lot of low income respondents, and maybe they're getting renters just because renters are 60% of the population. But yeah, I would imagine the low income community probably does not respond at similar rates to higher income folks in the county. And I also think surveys are not a great tool for reaching out to low income residents, because surveys are going to, we talked about this before, they're really going to go to people who are already plugged in, because they're on the mailing list, they're following Arlington on social media, they're going to be getting the invitation to participate, whereas a lot of the folks that we want to hear from probably aren't plugged in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Alex, I hope this isn't too big of an ask, but is it possible for you to reach out to staff or connect us with staff who could provide us some of the demographic data from the last couple of site plan surveys?
Yes, I can make that ask and find who that contact person would be.
That would be
I would
great.
be surprised if the county hadn't already looked at that too, because since equity is, a claimed value, then I would imagine they would be evaluating on a regular basis, all of their outreach efforts and saying, who are we actually talking to? And, so hopefully they already have that and they wouldn't actually have to do much to provide us that information.
Yeah, absolutely. Another demographic question I'm really curious if the county has, and I don't know if they have it, but is the percentage of what's the demographic breakdown of the civic associations, and what percentage of them are homeowners versus renters? Alex, do you have any idea if the county has done any survey or study on that?
I know we have a lot of data on that, but I don't know exactly what, but also happy to track that down.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Katie, are you talking about civic association membership or just people who live in a civic association boundary?
People who are actually active in civic associations and go to meetings. Now, that might be hard to delineate who's part of it and who isn't, but
I think
surveys or anything.
I would be surprised if the county had that data, because they'd have to go to each civic association and collect it from them. And that would also mean that the civic association would be keeping all that data, which I think the Shirlington Civic Association, which I'm part of, does not collect that demographic information. So I don't think that they would know that. So I would be surprised if the county had that. But I know CPHC looks at by civic association, jurisdiction, what are the demographic breakdowns of the population that live within it. But yeah, I'd be surprised if they had it by membership in civic associations.
Got it. Yeah. Because that might be true, and I think what made me think of that was the how I think it's like every year or every so often we get the survey as commissioners to like a demographic survey about like what is the demographic makeup of the commissions. And I think that would also be helpful to look at to see like how how much are the commissions representing, the county as a whole, and probably, I mean, not, probably not adequately representing. Yeah. I had another question in general, which would be, oh yeah, first of all, Alex, sorry for all the requests, but do you know if you could send us the survey about the commissions?
Yes. Which survey are you referring to?
I think it's a demographic survey that we received last year or whatever about like, as a commissioner, what are your demographics?
Yep, I can look for that and send it to you.
Thank you.
I think it was also an article in Arlington Now, by the way.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should look it up.
Or it was some stuff on the commissions and the lack of diversity a while back.
Okay. Yeah. And then I also was curious about back to the SBRC process. I did see like in the email that Anthony Fusarelli sent, it was something about how county staff are the ones reaching out to the civic associations and the neighborhood organizations. And, Kellen, I know you said the developer's not required, but I'm wondering if that's more of the job of county staff to do that engagement. What do you think? Whose job is it?
Like whose job should it be, or whose job is it in like it sounds like what he's saying is like it is the county staff's job to do that, but I mean, I know developers will do that as well, that they'll meet. I don't know if that's all facilitated by the county staff or if they do it separately. Like I'm thinking back to the Hotel Pentagon site plan, and like the developer outlined, we've been meeting with the civic or the Green Valley Civic Association. Like, we met with them here, we met with them here. I don't know if that was all facilitated by the county or if that was just separately the developer had reached out. But it sounds like that's not required. That's just something that is encouraged by the county to do. And I know for like the Clarendon Presbyterian Church project, even before, or maybe it was like right after they submitted the conceptual site plan. No, they submitted like the GLUP amendment request. They convened like community meetings so that their neighbors could scream at them and tell them that, I don't care what your God says, like you're not going to build this development here, which was fun to listen to. So they were engaging, and that was outside the county process, that they were just doing that, with the neighbors and the civic association around them. And, unfortunately for them, it just got them like threats of lawsuits and lots of angry people, but, and supporters, but lots of angry people. Yeah. So who should be doing it? Difficult to say. I mean, I think it needs to get done. I don't know if it matters too much to me whether the developer is leading it versus county staff, but I don't know if other people have thoughts.
I wonder if it's possible for this county staff to require the developer. I guess they could require them to do it, but I wonder then, would the developer actually do a decent job if that's not what they normally do?
That's so I was going to say, like, I'd almost see, I mean, if we were to, in a perfect world of some sort, I don't know, Michael throwing ideas out, but it's led by county staff who have experience doing that and know the community, can be engaged directly with the community and builds up relationships over time, with some cost covered by the developer. That would be, in my perfect world, I expecting a developer to do it, and have to develop some sort of process or guidelines for a developer, for everyone to come in and do it, I think is too inconsistent results, and there will be even more performative engagement, to borrow from Kellen's term.
Well, and I think the thing that, as I've learned more about how the site plan process works, like the way that most of the changes get made to the initial sort of site plan that's proposed is when county staff enter that negotiation period. So that's usually like after the first SBRC meeting, that's when the developer is meeting directly with county staff and that's where staff will sort of take what they've heard from the community, what they think the board wants, like what they think is best for that community. And then they'll say like, hey, you really need to plus up your affordable housing, units here. Or they'll say like, we really want some transportation improvements. Like that's what we're hearing. So I feel like the most effective way to get things changed in a site plan proposal is to get county staff to agree that that's what the change should be, and then they will negotiate that with the developer.
So I almost wonder if, if there's some engagement that needs to happen with a certain group of people who's not as much heard from, if that should all happen before the county staff starts negotiating, so that the county staff can take it into account.
It would make sense. I mean, because if it's coming in later, you've already negotiated all the public benefits. You've already relatively settled on, the design features and things like that. So changes can still be made, but at that point, changes that are going to be made are going to like impact cost. They're going to impact schedule in a way that is more negatively going to impact the overall development and its chances of moving forward. So I feel like certainly from the developer perspective, they would prefer that to come in the beginning and, they probably want all the feedback at once. And they're like, okay, if there's a 2-month window in between SBRC 1 and SBRC 2, where we do the negotiation, that's where we want all the feedback. And that's where we want to consider changes. And we don't want them after that.
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder right now where in that process is the community engagement happening? Is it already all happening before the first meeting, or is it sort of throughout? Or sorry, not before the first meeting, before the negotiation?
I think typically they start that before, because usually when we walk into the first SBRC meeting, they will talk about like, okay, we've talked to the civic associations, like those discussions have already happened to a degree. There may still be, like with the Hotel Pentagon site plan, you still had discussions with the church and with the civic association happening after the SBRCs because they were still unhappy about like what was being proposed. So there were still these, back and forth discussions happening. But I think the engagement and actually like going out into community happened before then, before the SBRC started.
Okay, cool. So yeah, why don't we, I'll ask Nikki and John to research this. And if any of you also have the ability to research this, like what other jurisdictions are doing. And then we may want to, when we're developing our recommendations in the fall, we may want to consider including one that's, the county staff must engage with these groups of people. And then we have to define that somehow, as part of every site plan process before the negotiation with the developer happens. Does that sound okay?
And are we just looking at site plans? Or are we also looking at like sector plans, area plans, like those
Oh
things?
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I'm wondering, can you talk to county staff and find out a little bit more details about this before we make a recommendation?
Yeah, to know clearly what the process is currently. Is that what you're
Right.
getting?
Yeah, that's what I meant, because I let's not make a recommendation if they're already doing it.
Yeah.
Or let's just
Yeah.
figure out how they're actually doing it. Maybe talk to a couple of them, like Melissa. I don't know. Maybe Alex can help you figure out a couple of the planners to talk to just to get a general idea.
Right. And, Anthony, we already are in contact with him and he provided us this information so far. And I think I could probably just ask him with any more specific questions. Just trying to figure out what those specific questions are. I guess we wanted to know where in the process does the community engagement happen? Is it all before negotiation or is it before and during, right? And then you said are they reaching out to anyone besides civic associations right now? Who are those people they're reaching out to? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and just like what's the timeline as well? Like when does this all happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not make any assumptions, or maybe there's a lot of different answers to that question depending on the site plan itself.
Well, and also the county has the equitable engagement guide, but it's unclear to me, like, the guide is pretty high level. And how does that translate into specific action? So if you have a site plan project and you're like, okay, well, we care about talking to historically marginalized groups. Okay, well, what does the county do for a typical site plan to make sure that they're getting feedback from historically marginalized groups? I don't typically hear that feedback in SPRC meetings. The county doesn't present, here's all the engagement we did with, pick the different historically marginalized group, but here's the feedback we got, and we want everyone to be aware of this, and here's how it's shaping this development. Like, I've never heard that. Maybe that happens behind the scenes, but it'd be helpful to know, what does that look like in practice? And hopefully it's not just like surveys.
Absolutely. And I think I should ask Anthony that, but also which county department or staff people are the ones doing the engagement for the site plan process or for the
It's CPHD.
Okay, so that's not exactly the same as Erica and Sarah who presented to us, right? Because they were more the hub for community engagement across all county departments, right? And they're providing sort of guidance for each department, like CPHD, to do the engagement.
That was my
I
understanding.
think that was what it was. Okay, so yeah, okay, so Kellen is CPHD. I wonder if we could even get a hold of like the specific people within CPHD who are doing this. I don't know if that's too hard, but like, so we can ask them more specifically like what their process is.
I mean, we can invite them to attend the meeting and answer questions, and it's, up to them and their bosses whether or not they come.
Yeah. Okay. I can follow up with Anthony. But first, Alex, do you have any insight about like who might be the right people to reach out to for this?
So Anthony and then the individual planners that work on each site plan. I would say in the second link that Anthony sent, it does somewhat lay out the timeline in the process. And most of the engagement does happen kind of up front. And actually I can share my screen for a second if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Please.
So this is the second link that Anthony sent on the site plan review process, and
Can you just zoom in
so
a little bit, Alex?
yeah. Let's see. Oh, can I zoom in? I don't know if I'm able to.
Okay,
There we go.
thanks.
So they submit a conceptual site plan and get some very preliminary feedback from staff. And then they have a actual site plan that goes that is submitted. And then there's an online engagement, and then there's also a walking tour of the site. And then after that engagement is closed, that's when it kind of moves to the SPRC processes. And there's typically 2 meetings for the SPRC. And the second one of those is usually where they discuss community benefits, including affordable housing. And then after that is when it moves to commissions. So it says Planning Commission here, but as well as Housing Commission, Transportation Commission, and other commissions, as that makes sense. And then I'll also just share this real quick. So here's an actual example. So there's a private development page that's kept on the Arlington website, and every single site plan has its own project page as soon as it's accepted as a site plan. So a lot of the information is kept here, as well as all the documents that the applicant is submitting. But here's a look at what a typical public process timeline kind of looks like. A December site plan acceptance, site plan review kickoff in January. The online engagement was most of the month of February. There was a walking tour that was canceled, but then it was eventually rescheduled for April. And they had two different site plan review committees, one in March and then the second in late April. And then it made its way to boards and commissions this month and will be heard on Saturday. So that's just kind of an example of the timeline associated with these.
Thanks for that. That's really helpful. And I'm
Yeah, I
even
think-
looking. Go ahead, Kellen.
Sorry, I was gonna say, like, what that doesn't tell us is like specifics. Is our focus is historically marginalized populations, people whose voices are typically, you know, unheard or underserved. What is the county doing specifically? Like, if it's just, well, we send out a survey and anyone can take it, like that's obviously not equitable engagement. You know, that's free for all engagement, but they're different things. So it'd be helpful to know specifically, like within that, what are they doing to talk to historically marginalized folks in and around the project area and just throughout the community who, you know, would have opinions on it or have things to share.
Yeah, and I can ask, I'm going to follow up with Anthony and ask that, and also ask if he can connect us to, or, you know, tell us who some of the actual people are who are the ones doing the engagement, so we can follow up with them.
Am I cynical? But when I look at that what Alex, we just showed us, thank you. I was scanning at that before. That it just seems like after a certain point, there's really, I mean, it's window dressing. You know, it's there
it's
are
accurate.
multiple, you know, conversations at different commissions and things like that, but it's well beyond and after any sort of substantial change can be thrown in, you know, whatever, proposed and discussed. So it just thinking overall as the county, like, is this what we do? This is it?
I think that's the frustration that a lot of people have with like the Arlington way is there's a lot of opportunities for like discussion or public feedback, but does it result in anything? Is it really meaningful? Like, or is there a real opportunity to make change? Like, I would say less so. And that's why, again, for the Housing Commission, we're like, we got to change this. That we're wasting our time. The applicant is wasting their time coming to our meetings, asking us if we approve it. We could say no, and it wouldn't make a difference. It's like we got to move to a different place in the process because them coming to us 2 weeks before a board meeting is pointless. But that's whoever designed the process decided that made sense. But it's not meaningful. It's, as you said, window dressing at that point. And then what's frustrating for us too is people come to public comment at the Housing Commission expecting us to take action based on what they're saying. And even when we agree with them, we're like, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do. They don't care what we think at this point.
Yeah.
Like we have no power here. Not even the power to influence.
Yeah, I know. I think that's so important. And I wonder, Kellen, do you think we're going to discuss that in an upcoming meeting, trying to move that early in the process, or are you reaching out to county board members?
We are. It's moving. So Alex, starting September, October for Housing Commission, we'll be moving to a different point in the process.
Yes, we'll be introducing information items for site plans, and we'll try to line them up in between the two SPRCs as best we can with the Housing Commission schedule.
Are we doing in between, or are we doing before the first SPRC? I thought it was before the first one.
I think the plan was to do between, seeing as they are planning projects, that is the first kind of public kickoff. And so was thinking to leave that in planning's court to make that the first public introduction of the project instead of at the housing commission. But that's, something we can talk about.
Yeah, if it's possible for us to go first, and mainly because then too, like our representative to SPRC will have that discussion from the housing commission to go off of. And my understanding is after the first SPRC, that's when the negotiations happen. So if we're somewhere in between, the county staff have already made up their mind potentially what's important, what's not, in that negotiation process. And we still may be sort of in that, like, it's a bit too late at this point. Because I know like the affordable housing piece and community benefits don't really get discussed until the second one. But isn't that also because the developer and staff have already kind of decided at that point what they are? And that's why they get talked about at the second one.
Yeah, each site plan really has totally different timing. They're all unique. But that is, the community benefits one is at the second because some of those pieces are tied up later in the process. Once numbers are finalized and designs are finalized and things like that.
But Kellen, shouldn't we take baby steps first? I mean, this is a huge improvement and see how it goes and not just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I mean, we can see. I mean, ultimately, it's up to, I guess, planning how they want to fit us into the process. I mean, my take is I don't want to waste our time, and I don't want to waste staff's time and the developer's time. And I think that's what's been happening, the way it's been running now. And I want to maximize. Like, I want developers to show up at our meeting because the public comment that they hear and what they hear from us, they're potentially interested in what we have to say, and they might change something as a result. I don't want it to be what it has been, which is thank you for your comments. We're not changing anything. And this will go before the board in 2 weeks and they'll approve it.
I wonder, should we talk about this at our next full commission meeting?
I mean, we can. I think Alex and I should huddle to make sure that we're on the same page with planning as far as like if they, for some reason, I want to hear specifically why they would want us to be in between the two SPRCs, because my preference would be more to be before that. But if they think it's somehow better for us to be, in the middle of the two, then I'd want to hear that out. But I'd probably want to have that information before we take it up for the full commission. But we should have a discussion about it, but I'd like to get that info first.
Okay, great. Yes, and I know that's a little bit slightly unrelated to what we're doing here, so why don't we move on?
It's a piece of it.
It's a piece of it. That's true. I know I was the one who brought it up. So yeah, that's helpful to know about. And I was wondering if we could move on to just like check-ins about the different engagement activities we're doing. Just as a preface to that, Kellen and I talked, and I was wondering if we could get any help from the county board office. For example, in terms of even just tabling. I believe Alex heard from them that, county staff or CPHD in general does not want to distribute our survey, does not want to basically facilitate our, data collection because they see it as a conflict of interest. So if we do want any help distributing the survey or even just sharing a table at the county fair, we need to talk to the county board office to ask if they would do that.
Alex, do you have more insight on how that possibly could be a conflict of interest for the county to distribute a survey?
Yes. So, basically, I don't have specifics. I was, asked the questions. I was told that, um, not planning would not promote the survey and housing news and notes or any county newsletters to ensure continued separation between staff and board appointed commissions. So I think that is more so the issue. But yes, CPHD staff did direct you all to kind of the CMO side of things for budgets on translation and tabling at the county fair, and those sorts of things.
Okay. It's just tough because we don't have our own newsletters or social media or other ways to communicate. But yeah, we can talk to the board office and see if they want to help.
Yeah. I think they previously said they don't have any budget for us for translation. Yeah, it's just, obviously very difficult when we're only running on volunteer time and even volunteer money for what we're trying to do. And, Joe was sending me, he talked to the Commission on Aging, and for some reason they, were able to get county staff to do this whole report for them and this whole series of focus groups and engagement about seniors in Arlington. And I don't know why they were allowed to have the county staff do that for them. I think it was the aging department or whatever the Arlington department is that does that.
My guess is, Katie, that it's whatever aging wanted aligned with what staff wanted. So if CPHD thought it was a priority right now to go out and figure out how they could do equitable engagement better, then I think they'd be all for that. But it doesn't sound like that's a priority for them right now. So I think it's more so like maybe the commission made a recommendation and their office was like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, we want to do that. And that fits with our work plan. Whereas this work that we're doing, I think, and it's different, like the affordable housing ordinance working group aligns more closely with what is part of the staff work plan right now. But the community engagement piece, as far as I know, this isn't part of, it's not related to a similar initiative that staff are going through right now. So that's probably why they're like separation of powers here.
Yeah.
Between those who have power and those who don't.
Makes sense. Yeah. And so just the only other thing on that is that I was thinking maybe Kellen and I should meet with Maureen and just since she's our liaison for the Housing Commission, and just sort of update her on what we've done so far and ask if the county board, if she can put a good word in for us with the county board office to see if there is any support they can provide. Just might as well ask.
Yeah, which we are going to have that meeting regardless. And so this will be one of many agenda items. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So on that note, could we check in? Could we just each person go around and report back on the items that you were working on last time? And if you need to look at the spreadsheet, I can put the link in the chat. Yeah. I know we have only some of us here, but
I have not gotten access to that. I don't know why.
Oh.
I can request access, but I mean, I didn't request it. And
oh, okay.
should I the weird thing is it comes under my work email and then my Gmail, which I never check, which is probably it's a Google Doc, right? Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Sorry. Whatever works. If you want to request access, I can try to give it to you and see if that works. I guess I can report back from the other people I heard from. I believe Kiddis, who hasn't actually been able to make a meeting yet, but she said that she translated the survey into Amharic and Arabic, I think. And so I'm going to follow up with her to see if she can distribute that or have some people fill it out that she works with at ECDC, like fill it out on paper. Also, Michael, do you want to report back on the tabling we did last week?
Yeah, you gotta give the numbers though. We tabled, Katie and I, thank you for coming out. We had a great time at Arlington Mill with the diaper bank. Really catching quite a few people, many of whom stopped and took the survey. I think it helped to have a written survey. There were a few folks that took the form, the paper that had the scan code. But we had people stop and it was great. We did mostly Spanish speaking. And, with little kids hanging on to them or standing there at the table while they did it or sitting in their little stroller. But I think it was a great engagement. And then being able to have some conversation with them about what this was about. It took a couple tries to sort of refine. We're asking you for feedback about how to give feedback, which is a little convoluted. But we got there. And so yeah, having Katie there with her Spanish and me with mine, I think we did. I was pretty pleased. What were our numbers on responses? How many?
I'm not sure what it was, but I know what it added up to. What we have now overall is 30, and we were at definitely less than that. I think we probably got 15 to 20 just then. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I inputted them in. So yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, you did a great job with the Spanish. I bet. So, great. Okay. If you'd like, I can just share screen with the sort of activities log and we can go through. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Let me zoom in. So there's two tabs here. There's the events and then there's the contacts. And then the contacts are more like different organizations people are reaching out to. Kellen, do you have any update on whether the NAACP is reaching out?
So they've agreed to. I don't know when. I don't know which email they're going to send it out in though, but I'll follow up.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Also before that, I guess we have our stomping ground, which I believe Kellen and Nikki, you guys were going to try to set up something there. Were you able to do that yet?
Not set up yet. Let me check in my email to see the latest on this. And I owe them an email response. Okay, it looks like they got back to me and they pitched some times and I need to get back to them.
Okay, cool, thanks. Arlington Neighborhood Village, I talked to Joe today. He said he's going to follow up to see if they can organize something. Michael, I believe, is now leading the Green Valley Civic Association. What's the status of that?
No, what I did was I did a reconnect with Kellen. Did they connect with you? Because I sent them like, hey, Sarah.
Did you hear back?
I heard back from her saying, oh, that's right. Let me hit him up.
I have not heard anything from them.
They're in the middle of they're having a great time roasting AHC right now, so they might be otherwise occupied. Did I say that out loud? I really did. Yeah, they're very focused on some things right now in the valley. I'm gonna see the email from her and not find it. So, all right, I will look and send her another, because I did send her a note. And she's like, oh, that's right. Yeah, we got to get back with him. So let me follow up again.
Cool. Thank you, Michael and Kellen, for that one. Halls Hill, Kellen.
Yep, reached out and just sent a follow up and just waiting for them to give me dates and times to meet.
Okay, thanks. Already talked about that one. Hunters Park, Michael.
I've done nothing with that, so I apologize.
Okay.
I'll grab Joe and then we'll go do something.
Okay. Thanks. This one was Alice. Arlington County Fair. I think that will be Alice following up, as well as Alex. Were you kind of helping follow up with the county board office, or should we be doing that?
I think we have to.
We have to. Okay.
Yeah, that was the direction I was given.
Okay.
So,
So
that'll be part of our meeting with Maureen.
yeah, we'll ask Maureen about that. Okay. True Ground, reaching out to do listening with the Mongolian community and contacting Henry. Michael, do you have any update on that?
No, I reached out to the one contact I had in the Mongolian community. I don't know if she's around. She hasn't even responded to my message, so I don't have anything else there.
Okay. How about Henry, the contact at True Ground? Were you all able to connect with him?
Oh God, that's right. He did this. Yeah, whenever you guys want, to Alice and me.
Okay.
I need to make like a to-do list on this because I forget this. Yeah.
I know there's a lot. Thank you.
Well, it is, and it's outside of my work, and so I don't necessarily like. I have a very good to-do list at work. Sometimes very good. And this stuff that is work tangential is not. So
Yeah, it's hard when we're all volunteers for sure. But yeah, appreciate you following up with these different folks. Saul can't make it. I'll follow up with him. Nikki, I'll follow up with her about talking to Jorge Laura. And then again, Kiddist. Okay, so other tab. Some of this is stuff that already happened, I think, up until here. But then again, the county fair, we're going to ask Maureen about that. And then, Michael, are you still planning to go to the Capital Area Food Bank on August 23rd?
I am.
Okay, perfect. I don't remember if anyone else volunteered to go to that. Do you feel like you need another person, Michael, or are you okay by yourself?
I mean, I could do it. We would probably reach more people if there's two. Spanish is pretty important.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. I mean, I'll do what I always do, is just kind of move my way down the line.
Right.
And if I
Thank
have
you.
a couple of clipboards and a couple of copies of the survey, then I can leave it with people and then kind of just swing back around.
Right. And I think that's the question about all these food distribution opportunities is, do both people there need to speak Spanish to be effective, or could there be one Spanish speaker and one English speaker, given that there's only a couple of us on the committee that do speak Spanish?
Mm-hmm. Well, so let me think this one out loud. So if I were to go down the line and talk to people, introduce the idea and then hand them a survey, and then someone comes along and collects the survey, and then hands me the clipboards, that sort of thing, that could work. So yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. Is anyone here available to volunteer? I think it's a Saturday, August 23rd, early in the morning at the food bank.
Very early on a Saturday morning.
I will be in another country most of August, so I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
Oh, Good. That's a good excuse, Karen. Yeah.
I can take this survey with me to Finland if you wish, but it's not going to do very much good.
I wanted to know
That
where you're.
sounds fun.
That's awesome. Sounds fabulous.
Yeah. Kellen, are you available by any chance?
I don't really want to commit at this point. Yeah, I don't want to commit to that right now.
Yeah, valid. That's fine. I'm kind of in the same boat on that one right now. Okay, and again, you know, I know we only have 4 people here today, so it's a little tricky. But I can also send these out to or ask individuals if any of them can help. I think this has definitely been the challenge is that the food distributions can be a good place, but often you need a Spanish speaker, at least one, and it's often during the day. So these are 3 additional potential food distributions we could go to. Gates of Boston, Arlington Mill, and St. George's, which is my church. But again, they're all during the day. So, you know I personally am trying to avoid doing more during the day items. And I know a lot of other people are in the same boat. So I can ask, does anyone off the top of their head know that you might be able to help at any of these food distributions?
I'm pulling my calendar right now. I'm looking.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I'm not able to do anything during the workday. Sorry.
Okay.
So I could probably do something at the Friday.
The Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Gates of Boston.
Yeah, Mondays are a little harder for me.
Yeah.
I might be able to pull something off.
And you could do either on Friday at that time. You could either do Gates of Boston or St. George's Episcopal.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever one's, I guess, is easier for you.
We say. Trying to pick a date here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me throw it all together and do it on the 22nd.
And I think if it's St. George's, I can probably come with you because it's my church and I live right next to it, and I can connect us with them.
I'm laughing because there's a Gates of Boston resident meeting the week of the 19th, 18th, 19th, 20th, whatever, somewhere in there. Oh. And it may or may not be contentious, and I will be participating. So like, maybe I'll go do that on the 15th. And then people see me there, and then it might make things little. So put Gates of Boston, 15th.
Oh, glad to hear they're having one. I don't know if does that count as our activity, or is that more a separate, just trying to hear about issues at Gates of Boston?
Oh, you mean like part of our, no, it's not.
No, yeah. So we're not going to be like asking them to fill out our survey there or anything.
No.
Okay, I'll get rid of that. Good to know.
Necessary meeting that needs to happen, should have been happening, hasn't happened, all of the above.
Yeah. But glad to hear they're having that, and that you're going. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I forgot. You know about that. You know a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was something they brought up when we went there. So great. Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
So I got 3 surveys that I just put into the thing. I don't know if you got them today because they're the thing is I teach a class, and if people come early, I was able to get them to fill out the survey. But once the class starts, it's like I have to focus on the class and not the survey. So I was able to get 3 last Saturday, and then I have another class on August 2nd. So I again will sort of see if there's anybody that's willing to fill out the survey, but I can't make it part of the class. Yeah. So maybe I'll get 3 or 4 more people that will fill it out.
That's great. Thanks.
Little by little, I guess, little by little, but it is very interesting. Some people feel very strongly about filling out the survey. The other ones are looking at me like I'm from Mars. but I'm only asking Arlington residents because I have people that came from the city of Alexandria to the class, and I didn't really want them to fill the survey out.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. Did you already input it into the online form or?
I just did it like right before our meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
So
That's
there should
great.
be 3 more. It's a little bit weird because the questions are a little bit different on the printed survey.
Yes, I actually just in the last couple days, I was making some edits to both the printed and the online surveys, trying to make them all, first of all, line up with each other. And then also I got some feedback actually from some folks from the Brian Marroquin from the Arlington Community Foundation, because I was asking him to distribute it and he said yes, but first he has some suggested changes to the language, especially the language in Spanish. So he very kindly had this translator look at it and like give me suggestions. And so I did, anyway, I made some language updates just to try to clarify it and make it simpler. And then also I changed a couple of the questions to multiple choice that previously were open-ended because that was the feedback. Is like it'll be easier to fill out if it's more multiple choice. Hopefully that won't mess up the responses or anything, but yeah.
One of the things that you omitted from the online one is the what methods of outreach. I didn't see that one because that's on the paper copy and not on the electronic link copy.
Yes, I think that is right. I think when we created it, there were 2 different people creating each version and they were different. So I just got rid of that question. I don't know if that's important. What do you guys think? It's an important question. Like what format? Or should we put it back in?
Well, if we're going to try to engage with people, don't we want to know how to engage with them? And then I talked to this really old man who was actually not in my class. And he's like, I don't have email. I don't have internet. The only way you can reach me is by cell phone and sending me a text message. And I was like, okay. And then he started telling me about all his wonderful things that were crawling around his apartment building.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something we heard a lot when we were doing some of this tabling at the food distributions is some people who don't use any electronic stuff. Yeah, so that's really interesting. Okay, well, why don't I add that question back to both versions of the survey, and then
and then maybe put cell phone or something, or cell phone text. I mean,
yeah.
I think my experience, or you do actually have text message updates up there. Yeah, you do actually have it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And I'll send after this meeting, I'll like resend out the link and the, Word docs so that everyone has the most up-to-date version.
And so you're collecting this information. How is it like, since it's changing sort of kind of, are you putting it into a chart? Like,
yeah. So on the Google form, there's like, you can see the responses. And yeah, so like right now, for example, like the first question is about what housing issues are you experiencing? And I just changed that from open-ended to multiple choice because I feel like even if it's open-ended, like we're going to have to go sift through it at the end and sort of make it into like a couple different options anyway. So I'm like, might as well sort of start doing that now by just having people check the box. Okay, great. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover, but I guess Michael, maybe I can follow up with you about when are we going to do the food distribution? Is there any other like group that you all can think of that we should reach out to that like meets regularly or is a place where we can listen to people?
Oh, that's right. I was going to meet with Emma.
Was that with the seniors?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were all these seniors who walked by our table during the diaper bank and were like really interested in filling out the survey, but they all had to rush off to their class. So we were thinking of maybe coming back to that senior group.
Let me send her an email.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, and I'll keep brainstorming. Like, I tried reaching out to my own apartment complex because they were doing this fair, but they didn't let me have a table, so I didn't go. But I can reach out to my, young adults church group, or I don't know, try to be creative here. Yeah.
Have we asked Voice to circulate this?
I think they know about it. I can ask again. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just making sure it's the renters and folks who are the ones filling it out. Yeah.
I honestly think the best way is face to face. I think a lot of putting things in newsletters is a great idea, but I don't think, unless there's an electronic link, I don't think people are going to fill it out. I'm
Actually,
sorry.
I think we did. And now that I'm remembering, I think Pat, who leads the housing team, did send it out, but I don't think I don't think we've gotten any responses from anything besides face to face. So yeah.
And you said also Alice put it in the Navaja thing, but people are just not going to, like, unless you're in their face, they're not going to fill it out.
Yeah.
That's been my my observation. Like, that's how I just smile and act nice, and then they're like, they feel sorry for me, and then they fill it out.
Good work. Yeah.
Works every time.
Good stuff. Okay. Is there anything else that we're, follow-up action items? Does everyone have their list of what they're doing?
I do now.
Great. Awesome. So, okay, great. So I don't think we need to have an August meeting because, Kellen and I were talking, and since we don't have any other agenda items besides just checking in on people, so what I can do instead is just kind of follow up individually with everyone in August to check in on their progress. And then, so, the timeline is definitely moving along. Originally, I think September was going to be when we were going to start, basically stop doing feedback and start coming up with recommendations. That being said, if we don't have enough feedback by September, we may need to keep that open and maybe also start talking about recommendations at the same time. Kellen, and then do you have anything to add on the timeline or thoughts about that?
I mean, the timeline is flexible because we set the timeline. This is different than the working group on the affordable housing ordinance because that's, trying to meet a legislative timeline. But this is when it works for us. I think we just don't want it to drag on. We want to try to get the information, get our recommendations out. But if we need to take more time, then we can take more time.
And I think that depends on the availability of the committee members. I know we originally said we were only going to take till December. So I know I personally was kind of expecting that I'll be done in December, but I think we'd have to ask everybody. Yeah.
So I think we should continue the surveys through September because people are out of town, or maybe not the people we're trying to reach, but we are out of town, and try to get at least through maybe mid-September. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to keep it open in September and obviously just try to keep pushing for responses as much as possible, but also we might need to just overlap the recommendations with the continuing to collect feedback, because it might be well, from what we've heard so far, we hear the same thing over and over. So we kind of get a sense, even if we're not fully done collecting feedback yet.
Is there a certain number of surveys you want? Is it 100 or something?
Kellen, you were saying 50 to 100, right?
I mean, I was just throwing that out there, but I think, I think 30 is too little. I think is closer to 100 gives us a better comfort that it's not going to be representative of all the populations in Arlington that we want to reach, but I think it's better. It's still qualitative data. It's not going to be, it's just similar to the focus group feedback. It's just going to be another input that we consider as we make the recommendations, rather than 62% of Arlingtonians feel this way. We won't be able to say any of that, but we can use what we hear and consider that as we make recommendations.
Definitely. And just want to flag for you all, so in the Google Drive folder, which Karen, let's talk if you can't access, but there's a document that says like ongoing list of recommendations. And this is just me brainstorming based on what we've talked about in our meetings about like things we may potentially want to include in our recommendations. So if you have any ideas as we continue, like feel free to add them in and just like, let's start thinking about recommendations as we move forward. Okay. Any last thoughts before we close out? Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alex.
Bye.
Bye.